morning.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's start. Can everyone hear us well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So today we're gonna start a little bit differently. We're gonna start sharing with you a couple of links from the work you've done in task number 3. We'll briefly chat if it's been more challenging, if it's been easier, and then we'll go straight into groups to have a little bit longer time. And then when we come back, Eva will join, and we will discuss and debate the outcomes of your little group chat all together. Sounds great? Does that sound good?
Yes.
So we're gonna share this week's task, which was we're gonna share Yeva's, Emilia's, and Mimo's, if that's okay with them. And then I'll put it in the chat. Is everyone finished watching the videos? Very nice. And in general, with the videos we received, everyone's really creative in finding different ways to make the task possible. We know not everyone had balls or the elastics, but there were many creative ways to do this week's exercise. So props to you all. So should we get into groups and discuss this week's task? You want to read the question or? Oh, first the Spanish people. Right? Yeah, maybe we can just double check who wants to be in a Spanish group, in like a Spanish speakers group. We know that Andrea wanted. Lisa, do you want to be in a Spanish group? Joe, I think.
I don't care either
Yes,
way.
please.
Okay, Joe, para ti sí, ¿no?
Sí, por favor.
Vale. So
Gracias.
Just 2 people today. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, maybe Estela will put you with that group since you talk Spanish and English, so maybe later on to translate something, but Cristal también aquí si quieres, así podéis hablar en español y en inglés.
Gracias, me da igual, donde quieran ponerme.
Perfect. Vale. So we will share the questions in the chat as usual. We will paste them in English and Spanish. English and Spanish. Yeah, explain this, English, and then.
Sí, yo también puedo sumarme a hablar español. Si van a armar solo un grupo, buenísimo.
Vale. ¿Quién era? Who did just speak? Merci.
Sí, aquí, merci,
Vale.
merci.
Perfecto. So we just sent the questions for you to discuss. As usual, this is just a starting point. So if you feel that you want to share any of your tasks with them while you're in the groups, or if you want to talk about something specific that happened and it was like really different from previous week's tasks, you can also talk about that. So we will put you into groups now. Give us a couple of minutes so we can sort out the Spanish speaking. 5 seconds and everyone comes back. Okay, yes, is everyone back?
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
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 Hey, Eva.
All right, so Eva is here to join the debate with us, but first, can everyone hear me? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this week's project, which I don't know if you've all got the email. There's this really cool composer that reached out to Eva, and he would like to collaborate with us into making a dance film. And we would like everyone to learn a phrase, and then we film it somewhere outdoors. I don't know if this makes sense. So
Basically, we have to learn the phrase. And then because we all come from different countries, it'll be interesting to film it in front of a monument, or if not, a landscape that represents where we're from, which would be cool. And if we can film it like a close-up and then one further away, if that makes sense. And then outfit-wise, casually dressed, we will send like a video example sort of what we want to recreate. But yeah, it's very open, no?
Yeah, the video we're going to send is with the music of this composer, Michael Wall. So we will take it now into the group chat and you can have a look.
Yeah, he's very excited and he really wants to make this happen. So I think it'll be a good idea to end this program and then have a video for us to have.
Can I ask you something? Maybe I didn't understand.
Of course, ask away.
It's our own phrase, or it's a phrase that you are gonna give to us and we need to?
After this meeting, I will send an email with the link to a phrase that Sara made, which we will all learn. If that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
more
Guys.
questions?
I jump into the conversation. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I wanted to just let you know that in online, the campus, you can find a unit that is related with the content that was supposed to be done the following week. It's about the abstract processes in dance creation. You have all this content available, but we are not gonna do the practice over it because now that Michael Wall was contacting me, interested in doing this work together with all of you, I felt was more exciting to do this than going through the content of the unit. So anyhow, you have there all the lesson if you want to go through it and have the theoretical foundation. And if you want to reach me with any question that you may have about this content, please do it. Okay, I'm here to answer any question you may have. But the practice that we are gonna do is it's not gonna be about all of this. It's gonna be just about dancing the phrase that we are gonna propose you and editing this video of the music of Michael Wall to finish the program all together. Okay.
Yeah, which I will send an example video as soon as I can get this to work, but my computer kind of froze.
Yes, this video that Alberto is trying to share with everyone is a video, is an example. If you go through the Instagram of Michael Wall, you can easily find, I mean, he is a composer that is dedicated to movement. I mean, he composed mainly for movement, also for film and other areas, but mainly for movement. So he has, I mean, you can find the different examples, but we are going to share one of them that we feel is more appropriate for us as an example to follow and guide your recording. I mean, I know that not everyone is going to have the best camera or the best resources to do a fabulous video. So it's not about that. It is about doing your best, trying your best with the technical issues and focus especially in the movement, in the phrase, in doing your best in the dancing.
Any questions?
Just
Yeah,
practice.
question.
Sorry.
Perdón.
Clara, go.
Hi, Hombre Luna. So when is this phrase due for? Because right now where I live, it's like the weather is, it's not stopping, not at 1 hour even. And we are having floods and la la la. So depending on when it is, I don't know if I will be able to do it outside because like there is no, it's raining all the time. and it's floods and it's
It is the
Um,
same for me as well.
mhm.
That's a good question.
I understand the raining could be a problem. Could you dance under the rain? Maybe. It's a beautiful option. I don't know if it's possible, or maybe it's true that maybe the difficult thing is finding the surface appropriate for dancing, but maybe in a rooftop or something like this, or I don't know. Be
I thought
creative.
there is
creative.
a place in the mountain that has like a abandoned. I go sometimes and it's very nice and you can see the sea. But the thing is, right now it's floods. It's ¿cómo se dice? In castellano, I don't know how you say in Spanish. Like
Inundaciones.
the river is gone over. So going up to the mountain it can be a problem because everything is full of barro, and I will try. Depending on the day, I hope it stops. But that's why I ask, when is it for? So I can see when it's going to be better, the weather.
It's we were thinking in 1 week to share it with everyone. I mean, the edition of the final video, it's not gonna be ready in 1 week, but if you have the material for the following Saturday, we can share everyone, we can share the work.
Yeah. Sorry, no, go ahead, Luna. Go ahead.
Sorry, Alberto. I just wanted to say, for me, I have a huge enormous project with a concert this week, and I'm not gonna be able to record it before Saturday. Impossible. So in that case, could I send it on Sunday?
Sure. Yes, you
Okay, then I'm fine. I will record it on Saturday.
Okay, Eva, what do you say if we extend it till Sunday? That way, if people couldn't during the week, they have at least next weekend.
Yes, we can extend it up to Sunday, but if you have the material before, it's much better, so we can share it during the meeting of the of Saturday's meeting. I mean, Saturday's meeting. That is our last meeting. But if you don't have this possibility, as Luna said, you can obviously send it on Sunday. Yes.
So Sarah was able to add the link to a reference from Michael Wall's videos, and if everyone can go see it and check it out, it'd be great.
I could see in the video there were like specific colors. So are we gonna use colors like?
It's up to you.
color?
You decide.
Up to you, yeah.
It's your,
Yeah, we're leaving it a bit open. If you want to wear black, you're allowed, but dress casually. And also, Eva said, it's this time of the year, it gets cold, and we don't really want big jackets because then it restricts your movement. So I don't know. Have fun with it. Try to be creative. Try to make things possible, and I think we can make a really cool video together. Yeah. Anything else?
If you want to have a look at the video, and then if you still have some questions from it, we can clarify that.
it's interesting also, guys, to start the recording with your face. Okay, so it's not only about the phrase itself, it's also, I mean, we want your face, we want you. So because at some point we are gonna use it for edition. I'm sure we are gonna do it. And also, if someone wants to do an addition to the phrase with other kind of movement, or because it pulls you that you want to share with us more movement that you want to dance after the sentence, after the phrase that we are proposing, do it. Or always propose, okay? If you want to add something, you can do it. We need this phrase of movement done and record. But if you want to add something else from your stuff, you are free to do it, okay? Because we would be interesting also.
Yeah, And after this meeting, I will send an email with the link of the phrase and just explaining, just going over what we talked about in case you have any questions, okay? All right, Eva, should we jump into the debate?
Yes, sure.
Yeah? All right, so let's go with the first group, which was with Greta, Luna, Rosella, and Sara. Ooh, yeah.
Sara, do you speak? Or, yeah, no?
I'm speaking all the meetings. Hello, it's me again. Okay. Okay, so I will try to. We had some problems with connection, so I will try to make a summary of everything. But if I forgot something, if I will forget something, let me know. So we were reflecting on the fact that it was this time the tasks were more physical, so there was no room for critical thinking. So we were just following the instinct and the movement and the object, the weight. So it was really physical, and so it was really also difficult to plan the movement, as we found it a little mental participation. Like it was more, instinctive in a way. And so we were also reflecting on the difference between the balls and the elastics. With the balls, we found more circular movements, and we had this rooting feeling. The movement was more in the upper limbs, and arms generally were guiding the movement, and we found more fluid dynamics and a continuous changing in direction. But when we went to fixing the movement, we found out that was more fragmented. And at the beginning, we also found out that the balls were a kind of an impediment, because we didn't know at the beginning how to move it in the space. But then we found at the end, they were more of a possibility to explore different ways of movement. And with the elastics, the movement was more linear and amplified and more articulated. And we were also reflecting on the goal posture, like on the meaning of goal posture. Like we were, like Luna asked if it was a static posture or a dynamic one. And we were reflecting on the fact that with the elastic, it was easier, because the goal posture, like if we understood what it is, like if it's the image that we are aiming for at the end, with the elastic, it was more simple to have the objective in mind, like to go and make the decision. Like it was easier to find a goal posture, while with the ball, it was more like the goal posture was in the movement. So it was not an ending point, but it was continuous. So it was hard to manage the goal posture. And yeah, and we were also reflecting on why the elastic was more like it was easier to fix. Maybe because it was more directed, like the balls is like three-dimensional. Like we had to also follow our back and go in places where we usually don't go, like our back. But with the elastic, even though we were making decision in the back, was still like one decision at a time. I don't know, it was easier to manage. And what else? Yeah, I also add, okay, this is personal because during the week I tried the first time the ball, like I was trying just to feel the weight and follow it, like with no proposal, like with my, like no mental proposal. And I actually had to ask Sarah, like I was watching the video and I realized that there was still a small propose in the movement. So I asked Sarah, how much could I propose and how much I could just feel the movement? Like, which one was the, like, where do I find the balance? Like, if I have just to follow it, or if I have to also make decision in the motion. And actually, I changed my, like, I changed the video at the end because Sarah told me that I could actually go against the weight. Like I didn't have to follow all the time the weight, but I could actually go against and see the reaction of the body with the weight. So I started to make a small proposal in the sense of, yeah, maybe the goal posture. Like I was picturing in my mind at least a trajectory of the body in the space. And yeah, I think that's...
Yes, we can tell that the sensation of the weight is not, I mean, it's not only the pendulum. You can do, I mean, you can interact with the weight in so many ways. With the resistance and it drawing different trajectories. For me, it's very interesting the thing that you said about that the elastics look easier task to approach than the balls. I think it's a question of expertise against the task. Because the balls itself, it's, I mean, with the elastics you feel free from any other sensations than your body, your own body proprioception, while you are traveling from one elastic to the other, for example. No? If you get farther in this task, for example, and you are really annotated with different parts of your body with elastics, this easier maybe characteristic of the elastics is gonna be less, because you are gonna be all the time the same with the ball, with the sensation of the elastic in your body. But it's, for me, it's a very interesting reflection about the difference between both tasks.
And I think also that I had the feeling that the more I train in the object, the more I could explore it, because for me, I don't know, I used the elastic with you in the past. So it was easier, but I still felt the need to really explore it. Like I had the feeling I could do more, but not because I was not in the task, but because I don't know, I could train my mind to see more things. Like I had the feeling I could see more options, but they were hidden because I didn't have the experience of
yes, this kind of training requires practice. I mean, it's not, right now we are doing just looking from the surface of it, but if we go in depth, it requires lots of practice to really understand how our mind, because you said something fun, there's a like little mental participation, no? The truth is that it's the same mental participation. The difference is that it's not conscious. You are not doing it consciously. You are not approaching the movement previous the thought. It is something that to make this happen, you need much more practice. So when you understand the dynamic and you let the ball roll, is the moment when you start to, you are able to be that fast to think before, because you understand the velocity that the ball is giving to your movement. So when you automatize this information, at that point you can think before and make the decisions. So it's something about building a building process.
Thank you. One thing for me, even though I've done this exercise many times with Eva, I still have a hard time with it. I think it's because you sort of have to let go and not be in control, and just letting the ball take you, which takes a lot of practice. But I actually never thought about using the weight against the ball. That's something that I think I'll try. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yes,
Can we
it's
go to the
all
second?
about taking the weight of the ball and use it as much weight as possible. It's not only, I mean, maybe the gravity is the thing that is the first that comes to our mind during the pendulums, but it is not only about that. It is to use it as far as you can, in the many ways you can imagine. Mhm.
All right, let's go into our second group, which is with Giovanna, India, Clara, Simona, and Ankita.
Hello, I speak for the group.
Hello, Simona.
Okay, some of us couldn't make the task this week for different reasons, but we are happy and curious to make it or to make it in a proper space. We noticed that the exercise of the balls is very difficult to manage at home in a little space because it requires really a wide and free from objects space, except if you want to destroy something. So,
or yourself, you can also hit yourself.
So yeah, the idea is to make it or to make it new in proper conditions. In general, we found it more interesting and clearer than the previous tasks, but also harder because nobody of us in the group is accustomed to use materials. So we found it more creative in the way that the mind is occupied and the object is taking the main focus of. So it's like the body is led by the object. I don't know if I was clear. For example, India found that the balls gives you a very interesting momentum to explore, and she wants to come back to it in a bigger space. And we found also, looking at the videos of the guys before, that this work affects a lot the quality of movement. And also in some case the preciseness of the movement. So after we reasoned about the idea of staying in the sensory relation to the object, or staying more in the idea of fixing the material. And we found that for some of us who made the exercise, the task, was really difficult to come back to the improvised material this time. And so, for example, some of us should watch again and again the video of herself, of ourselves.
So it's more, sorry for interrupt, but it's more difficult to remember, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it means that the storage or memory, the storage of the movement takes place in another part of our brain. I mean, it's another kind of memory. That's why it happens. Okay, and it's a very, very interesting reflection, because it's completely true.
It's like the biggest part of the attention is focused on the sensation, and afterwards something misses when you have to recollect the material. And this was especially with the balls.
Yes, because you don't make the decision fully. You don't fully make the decisions because the ball has a lot to say.
Yes, it takes the decision for you sometimes. And for example, Giovanna told us that for her, there was a strong connection between her head movement and the ball. So she found this, and she didn't know why, but she found that she found herself moving a lot the head while she was practicing with the balls, while the elastic gave her the quality of come and back, like tension and contraction continuously. And she liked more the elastic because they gave her more possibilities to explore. Even if after the elastic, when she was without the material, it was very hard to process the path also for her. And we found also the elastic had a restricted space because you put it on the wall or on a bar, for example, but you explore the different highness of the movement, so different levels, and in between, up, down. So it built a totally different space, the elastic. Yes, that's all, I think. And we also talked about a practical stuff, that is if we have a studio or not. And so if we have the material, that is also a question, because some of us had to rent a studio or cannot have it. For example, me, I have it on Friday evening, that is after you ask to send the material. So I have the studio from 6 to 7:30. But okay, we managed also we talked about this, that also to find an elastic material or a ball can be some of us managed with oranges at home. So yeah.
And one question that I have about the qualities of the movement, not the phrase composition itself, but about the qualities that the element gives or brings to the movement when you have it, when you are working with the ball itself or with the elastic itself. And after you remove the element, what kind of qualities remain in the, what kind of sensations remains in the second time you are doing it without the element? I don't know if you were talking about this.
I passed the question to some of the girls who could do it, because unfortunately I couldn't do it.
So please, the ones that were able to do it, could you tell me, and you can please jump from other groups also if you want to, and talk. Because for me, it's very interesting to know how you feel the remaining sensation from the very first time you are approaching the movement with the element, with the elastic or the weight of the ball, against the second time you are doing the same phrase, but without the element, the constraint of the task. I mean, which kind of sensations remains in that movement? If you find something new, if you discover a new way to, for example, a trajectory that maybe you never proposed by yourself without being exploring that element. It brings something new. It doesn't bring something new. What did you experience?
I think for me, the pendulum-like movement quality remained after I moved around with the balls, the weight in my hand. And that is not a movement quality which I inherently go to. It's not the first thing that I go to. So I ended up swinging my arms a lot because I could still feel some sort of weight in my hands after I put them down. So that was quite different for me and quite interesting because I did not know that I had that in me. So that was interesting. And the second part, when I was working with the elastics, that feeling of wrapping it around and then unentangling yourself through it, it remained like I could imagine physically it being there, even though it wasn't there anymore. So that was quite interesting. Like my body remembered somehow that I had worked around with that feeling, and it sort of holded on to that feeling even after the elastic was gone.
That's great. So it remains something from the original. It remains from the sensation. Your body catch and store it in the memory, this sensation, and you can reproduce it and its perception during the second time to do it. Thank you, Ankita.
As I said before, for some of the girls, like for me as well, it was the direction, like the use of directions that we usually, I don't know, with the ball, we were surprising ourselves with the changes. So I was reflecting on direction and also the three-dimensional space, because usually we face front or we have to focus like, but with the ball was more like all around and like levels and direction for me. And we were like, with the group, we were also reflecting on the fixing, like we were asking ourselves why the fixing stage was more like was difficult, and we were reflecting more about like why usually when we have to fix something that we first improvise, or in this case we first do with the task, like focusing on a task, like we were asking ourselves why do we usually lose the quality of movement we find in the tasks. So like how the brain.
I return to your words when you said the directions. I may emphasize the word projection. It's more about the projection of the movement more than the directions. The directions has an implicit intention, but the projection of the movement here is a more accurate word to express, I guess, I think what you are saying.
I was remembering something we said. We talked also for us. I know Ankita said that for her was really easy to keep the weight and the sensation of the weight, and I think for us that was the difficult part. Maybe we also said that for some reason the weight would bring different paths and different qualities, but when we took out the weight, it was more difficult to keep this sensation of the weight than the sensation of the elastic, the rebound, or the this resistance of the elastic. I don't know if I explained properly.
Yes, you did it. I fully understood. So do you think, Luna, this may be a thing about practice? I mean, if you practice much more with the ball, maybe you get that expertise that allows you to take the sensation of the ball. Maybe yes, could be, maybe.
We didn't compare between the ball and the elastics, but for us, we really liked how the weight really helped us to keep the momentum and working with release. We were really like kind of impressed by how much it affected us moving without the weight.
Okay. Good.
I think that keep going. For me, was I think that what you're saying about practicing, about the experience with the elements and the way of movement is very important. For me, it was crucial. With the weight, for me, it was very natural to go back to that sensation of having the weight, but I studied Limón technique. So that is something I know how to handle, you know, to keep that memory, body memory of the weight. And the last part of the movement is the beginning of the next movement. That was very easy to approach. With the elastic, I have one very difficult constraint that is very, very thick elastic and very hard. And I have it because I do vertical dance. So work with that was very different for me than what I saw in the videos of you, because it was very thin. You can do several different movements with your head that I couldn't do it because it was really, really, really tough. But what happened that surprised me was that feeling of this momentum with elastic happened in a different way. It was not down necessarily, but it was like, wow. And then I go, how much the elastic just give me this freedom and then pull me back to another direction. But was still a little more mechanic, let's say. I was not really going that, have that fluidity when I move with the weight, when I move with the elastics, because you have to also that, okay, my hand is tangled now. How I do something that can be fluid, but that telling me to allow me to do another things. And in my case, also I have a very bad accident in my leg. So it was difficult for me to experiment with leg movements and because I was afraid of damage myself even more. But for me, it was easier to do with my arms as the same with the weight. Something about this pulling and pushing and the dynamics.
We could say maybe also returning to what we just said, Crystal, about when you find a conflict with the elastic, that it also takes a big place because you have to solve the conflict. It's not only about recruitment of sensations, it is also about being able to solve the situation. That's great point.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Should we keep on going with the next group? Maybe see if they have something else they want to share with us. So the next group is Caterina, Maria, Sara, and Unati.
Hi, yes. In our group, we started with mostly talking about like, so we all, I think, had a lot of fun with this task. And we were talking about like the modifications that we had to do to make it work, which was really interesting. So we had like, some people used balls, some people we had oranges and water bottles and all that kind of stuff. And then with the elastics, what I thought was really cool, Unati said that he was using his own body kind of to simulate that effect, which was, I think, really interesting. And then depending on those like modifications, we all had different experiences with the task. So we were talking about with the balls or the weights, how that made us do a lot of swinging movements and like the experience of having like that kind of weight in the hands. And Sarah compared it to Doris Humphrey, so kind of that theory of fall and recovery. And that kind of unlocked that quality in some of us. And some people also didn't have objects that were very heavy, so they were kind of trying to imagine the weight more than it was actually present. And also we talked about how to, if you're holding something and then kind of keeping that flow of energy in the arms while your hands are like occupied with holding something. And we were also, after watching the videos, we kind of discovered a new dimension because we were all very focused on experimenting with the swinging movement and the weights. And then in the videos, we saw people also doing a lot of different stuff that wasn't that movement quality. And we were talking about how we were kind of constructing the movement around the task and around this experience, but it would have been very interesting to do movement from our own movement vocabulary and then seeing how the weight would affect that movement that we already know. And yeah, with the in comparison to last week, we were also talking about how we were using the vision more. So like with the elastics, the eyes were very like involved with that because we were seeing the object. And like last week, we were imagining the space, and then this week the limit, it was like physically there. And so yeah, it was easier then to then go to the task without the elastics, because you had that actual experience of dancing with it to then keep it in mind and imagine that. We also talked about like our ways of approaching the task. So just like our individual backgrounds, and everyone thought about like the games that we did as a child. I don't know if you know the ones where you span the elastics between two people and then you jump. We all did those as a child, so that was very interesting. Unati talked about that he does in his styles, he does a lot of fast dancing. So in these tasks, he kind of tries to approach it very slowly and like consciously with the breath. And that's like a very new sensation. And for me personally, currently I'm taking a class at university. It's called Body Somatics, and I'm doing a lot of similar stuff, but it's very focused on like sensing it. So I'm like spending an hour, 2 hours just exploring the sensation. And so last week in this class, I was dancing with the plastic bag, and then I went home and then I was dancing with weights. And it was kind of similar, but also because the goal was very different. I was approaching these things very differently. So that was also interesting.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm very interested in this, what you have said. You say that you feel the goal different, and the goal was different, and that's why your approach of the movement is different. Which differences? Can you describe verbally which difference?
So when I did these tasks this week, I was thinking more about fixing a sequence and then filming it instead of just simply exploring the movement. And so I feel like it makes a difference in the way I move and in the way, because I'm trying to fix something, I might choose different movement paths, and I'm like very conscious about the movement I just did, and then I'm trying to like go from one thing to the other instead of just letting it flow, and then I might immediately forget what I just did. So that's kind of a different experience, in my opinion.
So it was mainly about the fact that you had to decide and fix and compose a phrase, basically,
Yeah.
no? And that's why you had to drive your work in a different way, and it was not about the sensation itself, but also the requirement of needing to do a phrase of movement.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's it.
Let's move into the next group. Agnes.
Sorry. Can I return to Katarina? 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
This is because this point is interesting. So when you are fixing the phrase, sorry to return to this, but when you are fixing your phrase, what we do in general is a filter. We are filtering, choosing one against other movement. And this is dependent on the constraints of the task itself. The constraints, as we can tell, is, for example, the weight of the ball that is limiting or expanding, and it's giving to you something that you need to preserve during their work, or the elastic that constrains the space somehow, no? And this filtering of the movement that you are choosing to build, to compose this phrase, do you feel that you are doing it 100% consciously? I mean, you take it and you reflect about this, and okay, I'm exploring with this I'm exploring with this element, with the ball or the elastic, and then I do another job, another work that is reflecting about what I have done, and consciously filtering, choosing one or other movement to create that sentence of movement, or it happens all together?
I feel like even before I start, if I'm fixing a sequence, I'm already thinking about what movements I could do instead of just going in it. But yeah, I feel like I'm thinking a lot about like what I can reproduce movement-wise, and maybe if I'm just exploring, I'm also like moving a lot of body parts at the same time. And then when I'm thinking about making a sequence, I'm very focused on singular movements so that I can reproduce them and string them together. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense. Also, we can maybe tell that when you are thinking that much, I mean, when you are thinking to do this sentence of movement, this phrase, could we tell that you are using less body parts than what you are doing? You are letting it go and just exploring the sensation. You involve more your body. You have residual movement of what you are doing in other parts of your body. But when you are choosing consciously, okay, I'm gonna do this or that with the ball, to do that phrase of movement, you are maybe affecting less the whole body and going more of the body parts.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's like very personal to me. I find it easier when I move very unconsciously, that just instinctively my body reacts in very different ways than when I move very consciously. But maybe that's just like a very individual experience.
Can I add something to what Katharina is saying? Because I kind of feel I kind of reflect on that. I feel the same way. And also in the fact that I feel like while I'm fixing the movement for the sequence, I lose the quality of movement. Whereas I am dancing like improvisation and spontaneously initiating the movement from a somatic experience or internal perception or moving freely. In many ways we can talk about this. I feel I have a more quality or involving more integral experience than when I just have to fix the movement and remember, and that in that case it becomes more mental and cognitive, and because making selections and elections of our decisions on movements involve more mental and conscious decisions.
And you feel that both trainings could go together somehow? I mean, I 100% with you that when you improvise and you work in an holistic point, from an holistic point of view, as you said, integral, your body is moving in a massively different way than when you are thinking and choosing and more cognitively. Cognitive is everything, I can tell. But the thing is that I understand what you are saying, that you are consciously thinking, no? What selecting. Is transferable? Do you feel that is transferable one knowledge to the other? I mean, is it possible that the work that you do, the previous work that you do, exploring through the element, could be, I mean, this sensation of the body can be metabolized from your own body and maybe transferable to the second task, where it's more about selecting and making decisions? Or it's something that, what do you feel about this?
I think that those are like two mental mechanisms, different. They are different operations of the mind-body functioning.
Okay, I will ask you in a different way.
in my case.
Could more than transferable, do you think that the first training, to tell it somehow, training, the first work, the first approach of going into the improvisation with an element that is bringing to you a different sensation, somatically is different, and your body integrates that information and automatize the movement in base of that constraints on that sensations. When you remove this element, keeping the improvisation way of moving, some kinds of sensations that the element was bringing to you in the first moment still are there, are remaining there. So your movement has changed. Your movement changes itself. It doesn't matter if it's from the improvisation or not, but it changed because you have been exploring with an element that brought to you different ranges of movement, different sensation of the movement that without this element, you never been able to find from yourself. You know what I mean? So for example, the balls gives you a way, no? If you explore the movement from improvisation point of view with this way, it brings you different sensations that if you don't do it, you never find it by yourself, probably. So if after working with that ball, you remove it, but you still continue with improvisation, the sensation of the ball remains there somehow. It has changed your movement.
I think in my case, the sensation remains, and also the patterns of movement, because an object usually generates like constraints, or constraints, some movements. Like we usually and generally use more expanding or vertical or expanded movement with elastics, and more circular and balanced, and do like certain patterns of movement with an element. Usually we could, I mean, usually, like, meaning instinctivamente, when we approach an object. We can decide to move differently, but all humans have usually some pattern of movements constrained by an object, and the sensation remains. That's also a subjective, personal thing, whether you can stay with the kinesthetic and perception of the object after not having itself materially in your hand. It happens usually with parts of your body. When someone loses a leg, the nervous system still have the feeling of having that leg, and it's called, I don't know in English, like ghost leg would be the translation.
Yes, and they feel the pain and they feel the leg completely. That happens, right?
But that's the nervous system for each person. It's very personal also.
So I mean, to do like a summary of because it's very interesting all this talking, but I mean, we could say that working from the somatic point of view with different objects, and exploring, allows us to bring and to understand our body vocabulary in a very different way, because it brings us to places that we were not being before, and it finds, I mean, it allows us to find another completely different way to move ourselves, no, to move our body.
It goes in the opposite way. You just move and then think about what happened, and that's the funny and the interesting. Not even like knowing new things, but like emotionally, it's very attractive. Like, we talked about this in the group, and when we discuss in the groups here with all the dancers, that's the great feeling about moving freely. That's what we all enjoy, actually, and what people not being dancers or have specific training is the enjoyable, the fun and the nice part of dance. Moving freely, finding yourself in new movements, and see what happens afterwards. Think about what happens mentally afterwards. What did you feel? What did you discover? Maybe images, new feelings, new memories you didn't think about consciously, but appears in your while you're moving, because your body is memory and has memories which are not conscious.
Everything departs from the pleasure and the joy. And we can see it easily in children. They dance, but they don't want. They are not dancing to communicate a specific message. You know, they are dancing because pleasure is it's the first origin of the movement. It's the pleasure that it brings to our network. Okay, guys, we can move forward because I think it's.
Okay, yeah. Maybe what we can do is we have the next group, which was led by Agnes, Ina, and Simona, and then the other group was Barbara, Chiara, Chum, and Pujat, and then we have 3 more groups left. So maybe what we can do is, like, if the leaders of these 3 groups want to bring on anything that you feel it was really relevant in your debate or anything that hasn't been mentioned yet. So maybe we can do like a little bit of the 3 of them. So maybe, or yeah.
One thing we talked about that I think wasn't mentioned yet was that we felt with the balls we were more reacting to the weight, and with the strings we were more proactive. Was more us leading into the strings versus just following the weight.
Yes, I think in our group too, when we were discussing about the points together, other than the things that we've already discussed, which have been spoken about here, I think we did come up with this point as well, where we said that the task with the ball came about as almost like an extension of the body, because the ball kind of led the movement and led the body into the next movement without there being like a proper break of the flow. So it was more of like an extension of, say, maybe the arms, if you would, and it just adds to the complexity of the choreography. Whereas working with an elastic thread, it kind of has a mind of its own. So you have to be very precise about how you use it, because one wrong, movement can completely change the entire section because it just leads to something else. So you have to, in a certain way, you have to control the thread without making it look like it's staccato in a certain way. So you have to still flow with it, but at the same time have like an immense amount of control over the elastic, because it, when you stretch it too much, it retracts, or if it slips out of the hand or the feet, it kind of just breaks the entire flow. So we were discussing about how just the idea of controlling that kind of makes it a lot more, I wouldn't call it rigid, but like a little restricted in terms of how much can be free flow, with the movement. Whereas when it came to the balls, things just came naturally, and it kind of leads you to sometimes. So you don't have to necessarily create something. It just like works with the motion. So that's something that I think, Simona, we all, agree with you when you say that, like when we discussed it in our group.
I don't want to repeat myself, but I was thinking about the time of experimentation that you give yourself before you organize a phrase, before the editing process. They were saying that it's way more fun to improvise and just give yourself to the movement. But when you do it more and more, then the editing process becomes very fun too. To find the connections between the movements, how you can actually record those moments of experimentation and then see, and then you can decide, okay, I'm not moving my legs enough, or I'm having different heights or having different textures or rhythms. So that time of experimentation to create a new knowledge of a new sensation and realization of the things that happen in your body with those constraints is, for me, is vital. And also, like, I'm retraining after almost 3 years without dancing, and go to those processes and find those processes, liberate your body in a way that amaze me, and give you direct access to your body memories, to that body intelligence that is there, but is kind of asleep because you are not moving. So teaching wise is also a very powerful strategy to go these very little things that go away from only the emotion of improvising and moving. No? So that next step of studying it, thinking about it, changing it, editing, for me, has been very, very powerful.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Cristal.
Yeah, we also talked about something similar, where someone said that, like, in theatrical work, also clowns are working a lot with actions, and how this like taking actions can really add a quality to the dance.
Great, fantastic.
I only want to say this, that for me was very a functional way of movement when I was improvising. So the difference for me was improvising with a weight was very functional and concrete and real, because I was only thinking of it. And so I can leave my body to follow the direction, the weight, the dynamic. And then without the balls, I have to visualize it. So the sensation of pleasure was alive, really alive. But in the same time, I have to visualize it. So it was not so concrete. So fixing it was a movement less complex, I think, and less organized in a, less organized in a fluid way without thinking what I'm doing. I don't know if it's clear. And yes, I found this difference, like functional and less functional, but more mental and visualized. And also I found that the weight emphasizes the dynamic, while elastics emphasize for me, the articulation of movement and the linearity. And I found interesting what one of my groups said, that the circular object made circular the space too. And the linear object, the elastic, made linear the space too, and very frontal.
That's curious.
Yeah. And yes, and also that in general, Mercy said that the tasks were very clear, investigated and experienced, so very closed also. But despite this, they brings a lot of freedom in reality, because sometimes when we have too much freedom, we are like, no, we lose totally.
It happens in general in life.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I have to jump now to another thing, but I will see the rest of the meeting through the video 1 hour, in 1 hour, okay? So I have to leave you. Thank you very much. Please continue with this. I will catch up all of this in 1 hour, okay? Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
I just wanted to add one thing that I think is interesting. When you are improvising with the balls and the strings, like there is these two options, no? Also, like to react to what is giving you the weight, so on, and to propose also, no, with these actions that Simona was saying, like they do this a lot with physical theater and so on, like to throw, to pull, to push. So you can, even if you have this element, you can still propose. You can decide to be passive or active, or like, I don't know. I just find this interesting, and like in a way of creating the movement as well. Like you always have your decision as well, more proactive.
Yeah, I think when Sarah messaged, she mentioned before that she said, like, she asked me, like, should I just follow the ball or can I still propose? And I think, as you're saying, Agnes, like when you're actually active, of course you're following it, but you can take the decision of going against it or of like holding it back, and it widens the options that your body has. Even in the way to keep on following it, it just goes into a different pattern. So, yeah, I think it's very interesting that mainly everyone found that options and that different patterns to follow.
Yeah.
I just have a question, like a general, because me and Mimo, like you saw the video of Mimo, we did the task together, but like as I saw the two videos, of course I can see the difference, like even though we were together and we did it together. So my question is, like the only difference that it happened is that Mimo, he didn't read the explanation because he needs help with English. So I had to read, translate it to him, and show first. Like, so do you think that the way we receive the information change also the product? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that if I have to read in another language that is not my first language, and then try to do the task, and then if I have to see the example and hear the explanation, do you think that it can make a change also in the way we process information? I don't know. I was reflecting on this. In general, it's just a general question. I don't know if there is something like happening mentally, like in the process of information.
For me, it is. For me, it makes a difference. Actually, for me, makes a difference the country that you are living in. How do you, if you're a Latin, if you're a Russian, if you are a Caribbean person, how do you approach the movement? Have to be a lot with the context and your own experiences and the way that you are. The place you are, how you told, how I, for example, I move a lot of my hands. Probably in my movements, hands have a different, weight than the person who doesn't do that, grew up in a different culture. So also the way that if you don't see a physical example, you can interpret that in so many ways. So the results can be so different. So that is also important, not only to watch and hear something, read something, but also how do you translate that to your body and your background, your baggage of movements as a words, and the way that you talk, how loud you are, what techniques you studied before. All these things for me are very heavy at the time that you decide how to move, or the result of how your body moves, for me.
Any other thoughts on that? I have to say I agree with Crystal in what she said. Anyone would like to share something else? Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with you as well, and it is described in psychology. Basically, it's a actual common knowledge that the family that you grew up in, the environment, the country, and then the way you speak, the languages that you know, it all affects, you know, the way that you perceive the world and the realities that you live in, you know. So of course it will affect the way you are going to approach probably the task. But I think also, I don't know, maybe the more you experience, and of course us as a dancers and performing artists, the more we experience, because we travel a lot and we meet new people and stuff like this, I think that you will be critically thinking about the way how to approach the tasks, you know. So it's all about the experience as well, I think.
Yeah, my question was not like how we realize the task. No, of course we are different from each other. It's like how the task is given to us. Like, for example, I had to read and imagine it, but then for example, I just take it was just curious, I was reflecting about it because it happened. Like, if I take Mimo as an example, he didn't, like, he got the task from me. Like, I translated like as I understood it, and then I showed him the task through my body. So like there were two different approaches, like the thinking, like reading and thinking, and the one like just like having the image and like the two.
Something on that you're saying. I think always if you see a video of, for instance, we get a task and we see a video of it as an example, watching something, it conditions us, I think. Like, if I think something, maybe we'll say like, oh, I have to do something similar to that, or I don't know, maybe like you see a video of the elastics with a certain setting, and maybe it conditions you in the way, oh, maybe I should do a lot of process because the setting of those elastics, and it should not be like this. Maybe you just want to put a straight line and try with that. So I think always images, more you get, more conditioned you are. So maybe by reading something and creating your own understanding or your own task, it gives you more freedom, I would say, or more possibilities in the way to realize the task. And sometimes more you see and more you're given, kind of actually more restrictions you have. Although we might think it's the opposite, but I think we condition ourselves a lot from what we see. Sometimes.
Yeah, and it's curious because for me it was harder. Like, if I'm conditioned, I have like a limit, so I know that I can move within the limits. You know what I mean? But if I just read and imagine, then I'm just like, for me it was like full range of possibilities. So I have to like So yeah, I was reflecting. It was curious to see because we were in the same room and I could see the videos and I was like, okay. And of course I know Mimo, so I know like we are two different dancers, but then it was different, the process. So I was reflecting on this.
All right, so I think we should wrap up because we went a little bit over time. Right after this, I'll send an email to everyone regarding this week's project. Eva well, we were planning on doing something else, but because this came up, we changed the last week. But I think she is gonna upload another module talking about abstractness with dance. So you're more than welcome to read it. And well, yeah, we're gonna change this week's task, and I will explain more in an email. Okay. And if you have any questions, please let me know. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Adeu.